Hello there, and welcome back to Autism at Home, brought to you by us at Early Autism Project through the nonprofit initiative, the Hope Project. My name is Jo Isaacs, and today we have a very special guest, our international BCBA, no stranger to EAP, and you've seen her on our YouTube channel as well, Knippel, all the way from Madison, Wisconsin, USA. Actually, with the time difference, it's actually time for Kim to go to bed right now. So we're in our little pajamas and ready, although it's not for me, obviously. But Kim, it's so great to have you here. This is our 29th series on Autism at Home. And it's all about sleep challenges when it comes to children on the spectrum. And so far, we've already done a bit of an introduction. We've talked about the sleep assessment tool by Dr. Greg Henley. We've talked a little bit about setting up the day to be in a good sort of routine so that a child can hopefully sleep better at night. We've also talked about the night routine itself and how we could actually set a child up to sleep better. But then this lesson specifically focuses on difficulties falling asleep. And I'm sure in your many years of experience, you've definitely worked with children that struggle to actually fall asleep. And so just wanted to hear from you a little bit about that. Maybe if you shared a couple of your experiences and also just some tips for parents listening on how they can help their child fall asleep easily.
Yeah, absolutely. I think sleep and autism go hand in hand a lot of times. We have a lot of families that really have sleep difficulties for their children, whether it's falling asleep, staying asleep, figuring out the appropriate sleep routine. So a lot of different things that we can look at. But as far as kind of falling asleep and getting to sleep, we're really looking, like you said, at having that good daytime awake time too. There's something that we call the waking window, and that's how long a child needs to be awake, or an individual, anyone needs to be awake before sleep becomes motivating again, before we get tired again. If we're expecting a 16 or a 17-year-old to only be awake for 10, 12 hours during the day, they're not going to be tired when it's time for bed, right? Most teenagers stay up quite late, probably later than their parents would like, but that's because as they grow and they change, their bodies are not ready for sleep within that 10 or 12-hour window of waking up. So if they're waking up at 7 a.m., we can't expect them to go to bed at 7 p.m. That's unrealistic for a 16, 17-year-old. We're looking closer to that 10 p.m., 11 p.m. nighttime for them to be tired. So that's one of the big things that we need to look at with the kiddos that we work with, that waking window, because that really determines when is it going to be appropriate to put our kiddos to bed, to find that appropriate nighttime start time and that routine. Because if we're putting them to bed before they're tired, of course they're going to constantly be getting up. They're going to be asking for the tablet. They're going to be asking for more milk, another story. They're going to be playing in their room, engaging in stereotypy, because they're not tired. So they're trying to do something else that's fun and exciting. So for the little ones, those that are about a year old, they still need that nap during the day, right? Their waking window is maybe 3, 4, maybe 5 hours maximum. So that's why they wake up, they nap, they wake up, and then they go to bed again. And we keep them on that cycle. Yeah. As our kiddos get a little bit older, then we're able to extend that bedtime or that waking window. And usually about 3 to 4 years old is when we start to see that nap fade out, when our kiddos can be awake for 10, 12 hours kind of at night. 12 hours is kind of that maximum for that 3 or 4 year old. But that's what we really look at to help them fall asleep, making sure we have that waking window established correctly, and we've identified that. That's the easiest place to start and look at how old is my child, how long should they be awake, so we can get them to bed at the appropriate time and they're not constantly getting up looking for something to do because they're not tired.
Sure. That makes so much sense. And I think then maybe even any parent watching or teacher, maybe then immediately we realize, because they're having a nap later in the day, that may be what's making that nighttime going to bed harder and harder, right? And so I think also culturally in Malaysia, a lot of the parents are both working. And so then that might be the only time that they actually see their children. So they may actually want to get the children to have a nap so that they can sleep later, so that they can spend a bit of time. Do you think it can have an impact on the child as well, though? What are your thoughts on that? I know, cultural differences aside, yeah.
Right. Yes, absolutely. I think it all comes down to that waking window kind of at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So if the child is getting a nap and they're outside of that 3 or 4 years old, they're a little bit older than that, the nap is really no longer developmentally appropriate. It's not needed. When our kiddos are younger, they do need those naps. Their brain needs that reset time. Their brain grows and develops and heals and resets. So naps younger than 3 are very important for kiddos. But when we get a little bit older, then that nap can really disrupt that sleep routine and that sleep schedule. So it becomes really difficult for them. So yeah, I completely understand as a working parent myself wanting to see your child. And, I wake up with them, we get ready for school and we're gone and out the door. So it's nice to have that time.
Yeah.
But then as a parent picking what is my priority, are we going to do the sleep schedule right now, or are we going to keep going with the nap? And that's just a family preference. But if you're looking to get on that sleep schedule, then that nap is probably getting in the way.
Sure. Well, that's great, Kim. I think that kind of comes back to the last 2 lessons we were talking about, as well as of the day itself. So ensuring a child gets enough activity, enough food during the day, fade out the naps. And then would you say having a regular bed timing also really helps? I mean, it doesn't have to be rigid, right? But within that window of sleeping around, let's say 7:30, 8:30, but every day, similar times, that helps the body clock. Would you say so? Yeah. And then
yes, absolutely. And I was going to say too, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but that wake time too. I think that's where I see a lot of difficulties with families when our kiddos are falling asleep later, or they are waking up in the middle of the night and then they're up for a few hours, but then they fall back to sleep at 5 or 6 a.m. And then parents allow them to sleep until 8 a.m., 9 a.m., 10 a.m. Well, then that throws off that waking window. So that is going to push bedtime later again. So we can't get on track. So that wake time is equally important if we want to get on a really good, consistent routine. And like you said, making sure with that nap, sometimes we have kiddos that will try and steal sleep during the day, right? Because they were up all night and then mom and dad were really great and woke them up on time, but now they're tired. We need to try really hard, and it's harder on the parents than it is on the child to keep them awake, to get consistent with that bedtime too. Sleep needs to be motivating. Our body needs to be ready for sleep. So we don't want to allow them to stay up too late or to have those naps during the day. So then that bedtime isn't motivating.
Wow, well, that's great, Kim. Thank you so much for answering that question. I hope that helps all those watching today. Please put in the comments if you have any questions or clarifications. But I think the main takeaway for me is that consistency, ensuring that the waking window is age appropriate, ensuring that those daily routines are setting a child up to sleep well at night, to fall asleep, making sure there is that consistent sleep time, but also regardless of whether the sleep was good or bad or difficult, wake them up at the same time the next day so there's enough of a window. And if we keep doing this, we can hopefully reset that. Thank you so much, Kim. Well, that's it for this lesson. And if your child has any difficulties staying asleep, so today's lesson covered falling asleep, but many of our kiddos struggle with staying asleep. So do tune in for the next lesson, which will be talking about that. Thanks so much. See you soon. Thank you very much for joining us today, and please do not hesitate to contact us if you need more personalized support. With the amount of interest we have received online, we have actually started providing international online services and have worked over the years with clients in other states of Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia, Philippines, China, Kuwait, New Zealand, and Switzerland. So do get in touch with us for more information by scanning this QR code. And if you haven't already, do check out our online resource platform, Autism at Home, which has all the lesson videos, corresponding articles, and downloadables available for you for an extremely nominal donation of just $1 monthly. Stay updated through our social media platforms, YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram, and do click on the subscribe and follow buttons to get more information. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you very soon.